We're live on YouTube, Facebook, Twitch, and LinkedIn. I am Daniel Lucas, and welcome to Book 101 Review. Book 101 is all about the books that I read for the last 40 years, and today I have my special guest. He's the author of the book. Welcome to the show 1.0, the complete podcasting system for your business. No other than Mr. Rick Nuske.
Hello.
Welcome to Book 101, Mr. Rick. And can you please introduce more about yourself?
Absolutely, Daniel. Thank you so very much for having me on your wonderful show. I've heard a lot about it, so doing some great things. But yeah, I'm the host of the My Future Business show. I'm also the founder of a company called My Future Business. No surprises there. And, we've combined all of our operations to really point back to the podcast, and we help business owners and book authors ourselves to get in front of their best audience and customers so that they can have success in their, whatever they're doing.
Yes, yes, yes. And Mr. Rick Nuske, thank you so much for sharing your talents to the world or empowering us. What are the primary benefits of using podcasting as a marketing tool for business?
Oh, goodness me. There are several. Look, there's lots of people that use traditional paid marketing. They don't see necessarily great results from paid marketing. In fact, it's almost a bit of a gamble if you're new to paid marketing or you go to an agent and you have to trust them to do the right thing by you. Where with podcasting, it not only does it have more impact, it can reach a lot more people. It becomes somewhat evergreen depending on what you're talking about, but it's also cost effective. You can upload something once and that piece of content continues to work over and over again. It can act as your business card. It can personalize you. It can give you a face to your business, which I think is important because people buy products, but in my experience, Daniel, they certainly get a lot of value out of knowing who is running the business.
So, how do you find your book? Welcome to the show 1.0.
How did I find it? Well, the way
Define, sorry.
I defined it.
Define
Sorry,
how,
yeah.
yes.
Well, it came about through years of learning myself about what I was doing and how I was doing it, and then somewhere along the line, a number of people approached me and said, "Look, I'd love to learn what you're doing, but I don't know how." And I thought, well, I was getting a lot of common questions that would keep popping up, and I decided just to put this together because not only was that happening, Daniel, as I also saw an opportunity to showcase my skills and my abilities. And anybody who knows anything about books understands the power of a book, be it an audio book or a written book, which this is in all formats. So yeah, it's kind of like the cornerstone that brings all of the different parts of the business together as a lead magnet.
Yes. Read, 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 people. Speaking of reading, like Elon Musk, at the early age, Elon Musk read, read, read
Oh
lots
yeah,
of books. So,
3 books a day or
so
something, wasn't it? Crazy.
yes. So, what are the essential components of starting a podcast for a business?
Well, look, you need to obviously know who you're talking to. It's especially useful if you already have an existing business. But, this is, for me, business 101, let alone podcasting 101. You obviously need to know who you're trying to help or call it promote to or sell your products or services to. Phrase it how you like. It's the same thing. It's about you getting in front of your best audience. But, you need to know who those people are before you can start talking about how you can help them. Otherwise, it's like talking to a wall. It's it's almost pointless. So I would say I would certainly start there. And this book has 9 sections within it that cover, including that section. But once you know your customer and you've decided that you're going to use podcasting as a content strategy, because it's not a fly by night thing, Daniel. I like to say that my overnight success has only taken 10 years. It's a long game. If you're going to do this, you need to commit to it and make it part of your lifestyle. And if you
Yes.
can't, if you have resources within your business, then do that. Now, if you are a busy solopreneur, which a lot of the people that I work with are, then you still have the opportunity to use podcasting, but you just need to pace yourself at a rate that gives you the ability to produce content. But the important component to that is to be consistent. And what I mean by that, Daniel, is if you say that you're going to create content once a month because that's all you can do, or once a week, or whatever it might be, then make sure you are consistent because your audience will come to expect that frequency.
Consistency, people. Podcasting is like you're planting a tree, so have patience. So, how can business identify their target audience for a podcast?
I talk a lot about in the book, Daniel, about going where they already are hanging out. And, the beauty of AI and online spaces nowadays and forums and groups is that you can learn a lot from simply being in the places that other people in business or in whatever your niche is. If you're hanging out where they are, that's really one of the easiest ways I've found. Now, if you have a traditional bricks and mortar business, it may be a little bit different. But nowadays, I'm finding that the large majority of traditional bricks and mortar businesses also have an online component. So therefore, a percentage of their target audience, if you like, will already be hanging out in those forums, looking in Reddit, in Facebook groups, on YouTube communities. Yeah, and Google in and of itself, it's a very great place to just run a quick search for your particular topic, and it's amazing what you'll find.
Yes, for sure. So, why is it podcasting an effective medium for building brand authority?
It's brand familiarity. That's where I start. At the end of the day, if you have no traction and you're a business of one, and let's assume that it's the day one, Daniel, and nobody knows you. You've just started a brand new YouTube page, and you've just got a website, and it's literally your first day. Nobody knows you. So it's about that brand awareness, brand familiarity, that need to build trust. And it does all of those things very, very effectively. Again, it all does come back to consistency. And I would say also, to add to that, engagement. If people do ask questions on any of the channels that you are on, for example, if you have just say a WordPress website, if you have a comment section, make sure that one, that comment section is on, and two, that you respond to it, or in YouTube comments or your Facebook group. Engage, interact, and after your podcast goes live, people will see it and they may have some questions. And yeah, you just go from there.
Very well said, Mr. Rick. Very well said. And how does the book help business choose a product format that suit their goals?
Well, a lot of the times, the businesses that I work with, Daniel, already have a product or service offering. It can be used for startups, but the startup phase is a little prior to this. You can certainly consider this book as something as part of your strategic decision making. If you are deciding that you're going to become a seller on Amazon, it can certainly help you work out the strategy for podcasting, but I don't know necessarily that it's a book that will help you choose a product or service.
So, how can storytelling techniques be used to engage listeners in business podcasts?
Storytelling is absolutely probably up there with the most important element of podcasting, because we've naturally been taught from a young age to listen to stories. I remember when the first Star Wars came out. I'm showing my age. When the first Star Wars came out, Daniel, I remember going and watching that fabulous movie, and being told a story in such a ways that I was so caught up in that moment that I felt that I was part of that experience. I felt that I was, on Tatooine. I was part of that, that tribe. And through storytelling, people will go, they will self select and they'll say, that sounds like me. I can remember when that happened to me too. So, if you're good at storytelling, even though you might not think you are, just pretend that you're talking to someone you love, a friend, a colleague, and you'll start to open up and don't force it. Stories will naturally come from you, even though you might not think they will.
For sure. So, what advice does the book give for creating a podcast content calendar?
Oh, absolutely. I have a heavy reliance on technology. Thank goodness for the technological age that we live in, Daniel. It's amazing. We have automatic scheduling software that it talks about in the book. Some of those things are now changing in terms of, they're shifting gears towards new product options. And I'm always looking for different scheduling software tools. Now that AI has come to the fore, there's a lot of new ones that are not described in the book. But I can see a place for keeping it simple. If you're again that solo entrepreneur who doesn't have many resources, then automation of scheduling could be good. Whether it really also depends on if you're going to be a solo caster, meaning that you'll deliver a podcast on your own, whether or not you're part of a panel, what level of resources that you have, I think is quite important as well.
So, Mr. Rick, how does the book recommend balancing educational and promotional content?
Yeah, it's the 80-20 rule, I think. If you're just there selling, 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 people are going to know that it's just a sales pitch. And again,
Yes.
if we go back to that component where you're asking me about storytelling, which I absolutely love that question, if you're focusing on that and you become, I guess, skilled, it's probably the best way to say it. If you become skilled over time at learning to introduce, offers, special offers, ways to solve problems, then you're not actually ever selling or promoting directly. If you know your audience and you know the problem that they're having that your product or service solves, and you introduce it through a story, and then you take that story and say, well, look, if you need to know anything more about that, I know I have a solution that may work for you. If you want to check it out at the end of this podcast, go check out this website. That's a lot. That's what happens typically on the Welcome to the Show interviews.
What equipment and software does the book recommend for professional quality podcasting?
Oh goodness! Now you've opened Pandora's box, Daniel. There are introductory level software, but I've said this for a long time. If your audio quality is good, you'll have a lot better opportunity to keep people watching your video, even though it may not be as high quality. Because if people can hear you, they can understand you. A lot of people are listening to mobile devices, to and from work or going throughout their day. They might be at the gym. They could be anywhere. So if they can plug in their earphones or buds and just listen to you, and it comes through nice and clearly, then I think that's a really good place to start. Now, if you're that's and when we're talking about solo casting, you can as long as you have a Mac or a PC. I'm not an advocate of inbuilt cameras, webcams. I would also always say get yourself an external Logitech 1080 or 4K camera, but they're about $50. You can pick them up for nowadays, and they come through beautifully clear. And you know, as time goes by, if you decide that you want to do interviews, even then, I wouldn't suggest getting a mixing station. So many people I see, Daniel, they waste so much money on getting all of these mics. They get a mixing deck, top of the
Yes.
line stuff, Rode 5 channel mixing deck. They get all these Elgato Stream Deck because they want to be fancy and put all this stuff in there. You know what? Even to this day, after almost 11 years doing this, Daniel, I use OBS to record, a Logitech camera. I have a A1 Rode connector that plugs into my computer with a Procaster Rode microphone and a Rodecaster arm. Then that raw recording is taken from OBS, and then it's put into DaVinci Resolve, which is another free software. So you've got DaVinci Resolve that's free, you've got OBS is free. And if you can't get free, then maybe it's just an internet thing for you. So if it's free, then you've got no excuses not to start. But yes, you can upgrade and start to invest in higher quality. I certainly did. I remember the
Yes.
first interview I did, Daniel, was with a gentleman named James Schrenko, who is the founder of Superfast Business. He was the one who actually introduced me to podcasting. And I can remember my first interview was with James. Now, I had a Logitech webcam, microphone, and camera running, and it was chalk and cheese, his audio and video versus my audio and video. But you learn very, very quickly what you're happy with, what the audience will be happy with. I'm hoping that explains it a little bit.
Yes, definitely. You know, people, I started $10 of microphone plus my iPhone 10.
Yep.
Imagine my first season of Food 101 and Book 101 review. I started with a humble beginning
Oh,
and
yeah.
then you upgrade and upgrade and upgrade. Mr. Rick, how can businesses set up a recording environment for optimal audio quality?
Yeah, that's another component inside the book that we talk about. Again, if this is if you're bootstrapping it, as they say, and you don't have a lot of money spare to invest in sound deadening equipment, put a bit of carpet on the wall, close your windows, make sure that if you have noisy fans on your computer, maybe you can put the computer elsewhere, somewhere in a different location, or on the I guess the very budget side, just hang a rug from your bed for the day if you're going to do interviews. Some people I know, they record in cupboards. Believe it or not, they do that. So whatever works. I think you need to be a little bit, what would I say? You just got to look for different ways to do the job.
Yes. Improvise, people.
Improvise. That's the word I
Improvise.
was looking for.
Yes.
Thank you, Daniel.
You're most welcome. You are most welcome. So, what tips does the book provide for editing and post production?
Uh, as I've mentioned, OBS Studio to record. Now, the rabbit hole goes deep with OBS because, let me give you an example. It's a very important thing to have individual track recording because if my audio is different than your audio, mine's lower than yours, let's say, or I've got noise on my track and you don't, it's going to come out in the final recording. Now, in OBS, if you know how to use it, just a few tricks which you can pick up on YouTube like anything else nowadays. You can separate the tracks and you can record on individual lines through OBS, and then you can chuck it into DaVinci Resolve, and then you can edit those tracks individually. Now, I know that another good option, apart from DaVinci Resolve, which can be quite complex if you're just starting out using it, but it is basically the full suite for free, which still blows my mind to this day. There are other options out there, many. Camtasia is a very favorite one of a lot of people. Then there's the online recording studios like Riverside and many other options out there. There's not just one. I mean, if you're a mobile type person and you're recording on the go, a simple mobile phone, Android, doesn't matter, Apple, can all do the job.
Definitely. And what will be your advice for those aspiring podcaster out there, Mr. Rick?
Just start. And don't be afraid to make errors, have errors. I think the only way
Yes.
that we can learn in this world, Daniel, is through errors. Don't willingly and don't knowingly go out there to make mistakes, but push your boundaries. Be comfortable being uncomfortable. Turn that camera on, even though you might think, oh, I don't look great on a camera. Just turn it on, and record. Put it out there. And I guarantee you, anybody who's made anything of their podcast looks back on their first podcast and they just shake their head thinking, I can't believe it. Look at look how bad that is.
For sure.
Just do it,
Yes.
is what I'd say.
Yes. Mistake make you perfect in the future, people. So don't be afraid to commit mistake. And how important is a podcast hosting and what the factors should businesses consider when choosing a platform?
Oh, wow. A great question, Daniel. I want to share a short story, if I may, about podcast hosting. And I'm not sure if anybody knows about a company called, let's call it a lifetime deal website, who shall remain nameless. So many people need to bootstrap, and they think going out and buying a lifetime deal, which is basically a one-time payment for, in this question, podcast hosting, will be the answer to their prayers. Yes, it will, until that startup business goes out of business. And this actually happened to me. However, I'm a little bit smarter than that. I already had a backup through AWS by Amazon. I was running them in tandem. So when this particular lifetime deal business went out of business, my podcast on Apple and other places continued to stream out through RSS. What I'm suggesting is be prepared to spend a little bit of money on hosting. YouTube is fantastic for podcasting now as well. That is also free. So if that's your choice, go for it. But for me, it's about having a network of distribution so that you can increase your reach. But when you're starting out, look for the free tools. They're out there. It's such a wonderful world that we live in. Again, you just download OBS, you download DaVinci Resolve, you start a YouTube channel, and you're good to go. That's a good starting point.
Yes, definitely. So what is your short-term and long-term goals in podcasting?
Um, the short term goal is that I've been already doing it for 11 years. So I guess that's my long term goal, was to be successful and stay growing with the podcast. We've had lots of business owners, book authors, and those who are involved in different projects, let's call them, come to the show, join me on the show. And my whole mission in life, Daniel, from day one when I'd started this, was to not only be a stay home dad and look after my children, but I had an itch I needed to scratch as a former corporate. I wanted to give back. I knew business was going to be it. And I thought, well, how can I continue serving the business community whilst I'm at home doing this and being a full time dad, which is the hardest, most rewarding job, I might have to say. And it turned out that starting a business focused podcast was, how it all turned out. And it's been a fantastic journey, being able to see so many different businesses, hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of businesses um, come to the show, join me on the show, take away an asset. For me, that is very fulfilling, knowing that I've been able to make some sort of impact for other businesses.
Good luck for your goals, Mr. Rick. And
Thank you.
what metrics should businesses track to measure the success of their podcast?
Oh, yeah. Another deep rabbit hole. There are so many different platforms that provide statistics, but honestly, I don't focus on that side of the business too much. If you look under the logo of the My Future Business logo, it's got helpful people helping people. My measurement of success is how many people have I helped, how many people have I had on the show, and where am I seeing the interviews being used around the internet. Now, we've got some specific tracking data. I have a subscription for a tracking data that tells me where the backlinks are coming from. In actual fact, you can also get that sort of information for free through, the likes of Google, and YouTube are a fantastic platform for statistics. But yeah, there are certainly paid options and free options for tracking what you think is important to you. Apple Podcasts, I think it's called Podcast Connect, is improving. I wouldn't say
Apple,
that's
yes.
great. So I've had a look in the backside of there, but again, it's how many people are coming on the show for me, and whether or not those are getting airtime. If you're interested in vanity metrics, then maybe you can look at likes, shares, and that sort of things. But to me, they don't move the needle. What moves the needle is testimonials and reviews.
Yes, people learn from the expert. Mr. Rick Nuske. So, to sum up our discussion, Mr. Rick, how can businesses use listeners' feedback to improve their podcast over time?
Oh, at the end of every interview that I give, we send out a final email containing all of their links, but it's also got a link to provide feedback and offer their feedback about how we can improve the show. I think the day that you think you don't need to improve is the day that you need to close your podcast. We are always improving, and I've had some pretty critical feedback about how we've run the show before, and I've adjusted my techniques, my approaches to meet the needs of my ideal guest. So if you're listening and you have a way for people to contact you and specifically ask for their feedback, don't assume they're going to give it to you, because a lot of times if you say, "How did I go?" people are going to say, "You did great." You don't want that. You really want them to say, "Look, I need the truth of the matter. If I send you out a feedback form, would that be okay?" And 9 times out of 10, not only will they say yes, they'll send it back filled in.
Wow, very nice. Interesting feedback, Mr. Rick, especially for the podcaster out there.
You're welcome.
So, Mr. Rick Naske, thank you so much for empowering us as a podcaster. So, can you please invite our listeners to support your book, to support your podcast?
Absolutely. Thank you very much for the opportunity to share this part about my future business, Daniel. If you want to join me on this show, just visit myfuturebusiness.com and check us out on YouTube. Go and like and subscribe, and you'll find Welcome to the Show 1.0 on Amazon.
Yes, people, let's support Mr. Rick Naske because if you support him, more episodes of podcasts to come, more books to come. Looking for more books, Mr. Rick, to empower us.
Absolutely.
Please.
Yeah, well, look, we've got number 2 on the way, so I'd love to come back and share it with you.
That'd be awesome. As I said, you are most welcome to come back. So, Mr. Rick Naske, thank you for your time.
Thank you.
More to come, people. See you soon.